Wagwan, my little wildlings, and welcome back to Tales of a Swampin', my YouTube channel where we discuss things all witchy, weird, and wonderful. If you don't know me, then hi! My name is Chloe. I am a generational witch. I'm also a magical tattoo artist based in the UK. I'm a painter, a forager, a bone hunter, a cat mama, a bug warrior, all of that good, beautiful shit, you know? I am used to TikTok as my platform, but I am giving YouTube another little go. It's been a while since I posted on there. I made like a little video last week. If you want to go and check that out. The audio isn't great on that though. I'm not sure what happened. My apologies. My new software, I was still kind of getting to terms with that. So I'm hoping that this week will be all okay. We're all good to go. Morning, baby. But I thought this week I would share a few of my top tips for those of you that are really wanting to kind of get into doing witchcraft or starting your spiritual path. I'm just taking my mantis out while I do this because she hasn't had a run around yet this morning. So she's joining us for filming. This is Nim, my praying mantis. So I thought that today would be a nice little opportunity to pop on and just discuss some of like my personal top tips on what you should kind of be researching into, the kind of things that you should look at or be exploring if you are interested in getting into witchcraft or becoming a witch yourself. So for me, of course, like things were a little bit different as I was raised by a witch also. However, we weren't aware of this when we were children. My mum didn't practice in the household when we were younger. She was married to a Catholic man. He did not agree with those kind of beliefs. But I was still raised on very like pagan principles. We were, of course, always taught to treat animals, plants, people with the same respect. We spoke to our spirit guides like a lot. That was something that was like a main feature of my childhood. My mum is more of like a psychic witch, I would say. So we were very drawn to asking our spirit guides for help, all of those kind of things. However, I didn't start to fully practice as a practicing witch. And when I say practicing witch, I mean somebody who casts magic, casts spells, does rituals, all of that kind of stuff. So I have so many people, particularly on TikTok, asking me what are the best kind of ways to research this, what should I be looking into. So I'm here to share some knowledge, share some wisdom. So one of the main things that I do tell people to regularly look into when they're first starting their magical whimsical journey is to look into a witch wound. Now, witch wound isn't something necessarily that's like majorly discussed much in like the witchy community, but I think that it is a real massive part of civilization as a whole, and I think actually every woman holds a little bit of a witch wound. So I think that this is really important when we are starting our spiritual journeys, or wanting to step into ourselves a little bit more and really harness the power of what we have inside of our souls. I think it is really, really important to look into witch wounds. Now, a witch wound is something that affects our behavior whether we're really aware of it or not. And I think that actually every woman holds these kind of ancestral wounds that we don't even realize. And this has mainly been caused by the oppression of women, of course, like throughout our generations, throughout a lot of generations, but particularly to do with like the witch trials. So a woman being any kind of way, kind of spiritually in tune, or even just like having a voice. It can really be as simple as that, or having her own beliefs. And this can kind of lead us to not believing in our true powers, but also having like embarrassment around what we would like to tap into spiritually, or shame around the things that we are trying to tap into. For example, like when I started to really try to do like physical spellcraft, I mean, I was so young when I first like started to do my spell work. I was about 14, I'm still in school. But I felt so incredibly silly. Like that's the only word that I can kind of like actually, that is like the perfect word to describe exactly how I felt at that time, is that I felt so incredibly stupid and silly trying to cast these spells. And the thing is, when you are feeling these kind of emotions, it actually will counteract your magic because you're not fully believing in what you are casting. However, these are emotions that have been drilled into us and drilled into our ancestors for a very, very long time. And this is really about, really trying to tap in and heal those certain emotions that make us feel embarrassed or shameful around tapping into our potential or spirituality, especially around casting magic, casting spells, or becoming a witch. So I would always advise anybody, no matter what age, to look into a witch wound. And there are certain ways that you can begin to heal this. This may just be through looking up to your ancestry, your lineage, figuring out what kind of part of the world you're from and what kind of traditions, deep traditions. I think especially now in like westernized civilization and societies, we have kind of been taught to believe that culture is based around celebrities, music, very kind of trivial and meaningless shit, to be honest. And this is something that I really struggled with as a British woman. I didn't feel like we had any history, like we didn't have any culture as a country. And it wasn't until I, really started looking into my lineage and looking at what that looked like for the Celts, what that looked like for the Gaelic traditions. I have Irish, Welsh, and British in my blood. So it's really important also to have a little look at your lineage as a human being, where your ancestry came from. It can really help tap in to heal that witch wound, but it is also something just really, really good to research around the kind of practices that align with you and align with your ancestry, and how you can incorporate that into your magic. Now, me being somebody that is an eclectic witch, I don't necessarily just tap into pagan, Celtic, Gaelic traditions. I pull lots of different things from lots of different open practices. For example, I do a lot of like ancient Egyptian magic within my practice. So you don't have to put yourself into a box with that, but that is something that is really, really helpful to kind of connect with your practice and see where you want to go with that. Are you listening to me, little bug? Little Nim Nim. The next thing that I would advise is obviously to just start doing a hell of a lot of research. And this is where I really am going to be that bitch and kind of say, we do have a lot more resources than AI and Google. Friends, please have a little look into books, even if they are books that you can get downloaded onto your phone. Have a little look at cross references online. If you're going to use AI to research these things, have a little look at what books it may suggest for you to then research. I would not advise you to get all of your information offline. I would not advise you to get all of your information from AI. That is something that I think is kind of tainting modern day witchcraft, is the fact that we are allowing witch talkers or AI to shape our practice. Our practices do not need to look like anybody else's. I always say in my tutorial videos that it's really, really important to take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. I can give advice, but to copy someone's spell step by step, hand by hand, is something that is going to only stump the growth of your own personal practice. The whole point in finding your own practice is finding the right rhythms that work for you, the right materials that work for you, the right kind of spells that work for you. And you can of course take inspiration from things that you may see online or find online, but I would always back it up with thorough research, and also your intuition. Following your intuition as a witch is one of the most important things that you can do during spellcraft. Sometimes I will have a whole spell planned out for myself, and then I'll be doing something and I'll just have like a sharp little insight, a little thought, maybe it would just like whisper lemon. And I would just know straight away, okay, I need a lemon in this spell. That's just like an example. It could be to do with anything. But I feel like following your intuition is just something that you really, really need to hone in on. Especially as baby witches, you know, there are of course certain rules, I suppose, in witchcraft in terms of like what herbs and stuff are best for correspondences, what kind of spells are best for certain things, which you can find through research and community. But your practice is supposed to be your own practice, and that is part of also healing that witch wound, you know, really believing in your individuality and stepping into that personal spiritual space. But when it comes to research, you know, when I talk about researching herbs, researching correspondences, there are so many different books that you can invest in. I think one of my, what was it called? One of the first ever witch books that I got, that I've now passed on to another baby witch, was called The Witch's Journal, and that has just like lots of different information about different spells, about different materials, about different crystals, moon phases. Like there are so many little books like that are similar to that. One that I would always recommend also if you're looking for one based on correspondences is this one here, which is an encyclopedia of magical herbs. So this has got um A to Z list of lots of different herbs with all of their magical correspondences. But I would also always recommend having more than one source to kind of pick up your references on, because a lot of herbs can have a lot of different magical properties, but your intention of what you're putting into the spell is the main thing. There are also many, many books about witchcraft history, occult history, that are really, really good to research into, having a little nose of the history of witchcraft and the occult. I would also recommend researching different symbolism, lots of different things like that. There are so many things to research. I have been practicing witchcraft now for, Jesus, fuck, how long? 14. I'm 29 now, so quick maths, not so quick maths. 15 years. 15 long years. And I'm still learning things. I'm still researching. I think a lot of the fear around like really diving into craft these days is, oh God, there's so much to learn. How am I ever going to know everything? A little secret from a witch who's been practicing witchcraft for a really fucking long time: you're never going to know everything. And I think that that is the beauty within being a witch. It always keeps me curious. It always keeps me wanting to learn. And it also just keeps me fucking grounded. And in a age like today, as a girly pop that does suffer with mental health, that also is, of course, a beautiful thing that has come from my craft. But one of the one things that I will speak about quite freely and quite openly are the facts that witchcraft in itself isn't all love and light. You will see a lot of different practitioners, hi, that will kind of, you know, it's like more the hippy dippy side of spirituality, and it's all light and love. I will be the first person to tell you that my main growth as an individual, or my spiritual awakening, hasn't come from moving through light. It has come through moving through darkness. So shadow work is such an important part of who I personally am as a witch. And I think that it should be a part of everybody's spiritual practice, because we cannot move through things, we cannot heal things without feeling them. So, you know, shadow work has a really pinnacle space in witchcraft, from my opinion, and that is something that I believe everybody should look into. There are, of course, some cautions that I would advise taking when you're doing this. Never do it when you're in too much of a fragile mind, and always do it when you can kind of keep yourself safe. You know, there's a time and a place to be able to feel the things that we need to feel in a safe environment. Never kind of push yourself to a point where you're putting yourself in an unsafe headspace, you know, by doing shadow work. There's always a good time in a good way to approach this. I have researched a lot of like ancient magic, ancient civilizations, ancient history. That's just my fucking jam. I love it. And you will find a common theme throughout all of the religious creation stories, out of a lot of the magical mythology within ancient mythology, is that the most powerful magical tool you will ever find is your voice. So, in a lot of creator stories, they talk about how our gods gave us our voice, which is what created us into these kind of humanoid beings that we are today. Before that, we were more animalistic. We didn't really have much control over our fate or over our paths in life. So, speech is something that again and again has been brought up within ties to magic, and how, you know, you hear about manifestation now, which is like more of a modern technique of magic. You know, I like to say in my classes, in my workshops, that, you know, if you really want to break it down, spell work is just elemental manifestation. We're using manifestation, we're using the elements to manifest, and it's heightening manifestations with those elements. So now this can also tie in again to the witch wound, because I feel like sometimes speaking things out loud, it could be a bit cringe. Like, let's be honest, you know, like when you're not even like used to doing these things, speaking petitions out loud, speaking in like riddles isn't for everyone. But I do tell the herbs what I would like them to do, and I also always like breathe some life force into them, I like to call it. So I will breathe my breath onto the herbs, and I will tell them, you know, say if I'm using lavender and I want to use it for its calming element, I will speak that into the lavender before I enter it into a spell. So I'll say, this lavender keeps me calm and grounded within this spell that I've just casted, you know. And I always also talk in the past tense. You know, you hear a lot about manifestation and speaking in the kind of past tense or present tense, as if you've already received that thing. I would also recommend doing that in spell work, because that is something we are, you know, you look at manifestation, and if you were constantly talking about something in the future tense, rather than the past or the present tense, you're acknowledging that you don't have said thing. So then you are also counteracting your magic. There are so many little kind of things that you need to be able to integrate into your spell work, and that is just coming from self-belief, which again is tied to the witch wound. So it's really about diving in to this headspace that you have already received what you are asking for by doing that spell, and not to kind of ponder over that, or not to kind of uh, be chasing that once you've done the spell. You really need to surrender that to the universe and just think, okay, this is what I have asked for and I have received, and it will come, you know. And you have to kind of like mentally be able to block that out. This is something that I used to get stuck on quite a lot with prosperity spells, because I was so like focused on, after doing the money spell, that I was still fucking broke. I was still stressed about bills, not having any money in my bank, you know, natural kind of stresses. But I didn't realize within doing that, I was actually counteracting a lot of my magic, and it wasn't coming to fruition. And I couldn't understand for such a long time until I actually got to a point where I was grieving. She's going to jump. And I genuinely just didn't have the headspace to worry about money anymore. And all of a sudden, my manifestations around money started to come true, because I genuinely wasn't stressing about that anymore. So that is also something that is really kind of important to kind of touch upon when we're talking about firstly getting involved in magic. It's like certain ways that you can train your brain to help that really come to fruition. Now, the one thing that, again, you're probably bored of hearing us witches nap on about, but it's something that I will always bring up when I am introducing people to magic, speaking to baby witches, and that would be highlighting protection magic. Now, if you're doing any kind of magic, it's always very good to also involve some sort of protection magic within that, and that will protect you from any kind of negative influences, negative flashbacks, and also because, when you're doing a spell, which is something that I will also just really quickly touch upon, if you are not giving that spell exact direction, um, there is a real chance that you could receive what you have been asking for in a way that you have not thought about receiving it. So, for example, you do a money spell and you ask for, I don't know, an influx of money, but then you just start finding pennies everywhere, or you get gifted a newspaper with loads of coupons in. You're not being so precise about what it is you would like to receive from the spell. So precision within magic is so important. You really need to, are you listening to me? You really need to kind of pinpoint exactly what it is that you want from the spell, and that is where the protection magic or element comes into. There are certain different spells, little bits of magic that you can do that really just help protect your energy, and help protect the result of your spell work. So I think that's really important to highlight, that if you are going to research how to do any kind of magic first, before you dive into, I don't know, a fucking glove spell or anything like that, please look into protection magic. It is something that is really, really important, that I think should be involved in everybody's practice, especially if you are practicing as a baby witch. Hey, hi. I do really need to get my nails done. I have been camping this weekend. Um, they're not in any fit state for me to be recording right now, but your girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. Another thing that I would also just love to highlight as I'm doing this right now is I really think it is important to connect with familiars, connect with nature, and really just ground yourself within the energy of what is around us. And that can be in the form of an animal, that could be in the form of a tree. A body of water. I think connecting with the earth, connecting with creatures, animals, other people is so important and such a beautiful part of anyone's practice. I mean, you see so many different kinds of witches, and this is something also that I want to touch upon. A lot of people that are witches don't actually cast magic, and then there are certain people that will class themselves as pagans but not as witches because they don't cast magic. So you really don't have to put yourself into any box, and it really is just what feels right for you. You don't have to follow anybody else's path. It is all to do with what serves you, what helps you. And it's the beauty of it being able to make it like such an independent kind of practice. It's almost like an art form, and that's how I always kind of link it to like witchcraft. It's your own personal little magical art form that should be for you and you only. So yeah, there are so many different ways that you can start to totter into exploration of these kind of things. And the possibilities are endless. That is so much to research. There's so many different sources. There's such a broad as well community within spiritualism and within witches. And the more that grows online, there are a lot of online safe spaces for you to kind of learn, ask people about. Even if there is something that you would like to learn about in Pacific, let me know in the comments and I will have a little dive into it. Like one of my favorite parts about being a witch is teaching. I love to teach. That's why I do all of my workshops outside of my tattooing. And it's also why I do social media. So if there's anything that you feel like you would really like to dive into or would like to learn more about, please just leave a comment and I will get round to it whenever I have the fucking time. But we love to see it, and we love to see our baby girl joining us for the party. Nim Nim. She probably thinks my light is the sun. I didn't have any plan for this video. I just kind of wanted to talk about what came to the tippy top of my head when I think about this. So yeah, if there is anything that you feel you would like me to dive deeper into or you would like me to explore more, then just fucking let me know, Can. But that is all I have time for today, my darling little wildlings. So if you have anything that you want to say, please, yeah, drop me a comment. Let me fucking know. And we'll get round to it, won't we, little Nim? Yeah, we will. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye.